Hello, welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ouspenskaya.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I feel like we are on the roll. We're moving along with the first symphony, and it's so great to have Chris, you back, and everyone back on this program.
Yeah, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We'll be your hosts for today's show. This is part 8 of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 1, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, and produced by Architects of Music.
And this is an incredible collaboration, which has been possible because it is our passion and we all share it, to be connecting musicians and audiences in real-time musical performances and live programs from around the globe.
In the central section of this finale, which must be a sonata-style development, you will hear the ascending scales from the main theme, often inverted so that they now descend. And sometimes they're combined with the syncopated theme. And then that transitional theme from the exposition, which was in the cellian bass, that one which is now flirting with the minor key. And the ascending scales, which Beethoven had so carefully assembled for us, note by note in the opening, they are now going full throttle in the strings. And the music settles on this huge dominant chord on G and just grinds away. Listen how it all dissolves now into the recapitulation. And the main materials are recapitulated pretty much as we've heard them in the exposition, except as expected, they all stay in the tonic key of C major. And you'll hear how Beethoven now switches over to pure harmony and rhythm with these rising chords. And coming to rest on this massive dominant chord on G. Again, a major structural point. And listen to what happens coming out. For me, the high point of this entire symphony is the coda to the finale, where the surging energy of the music cools down a bit, and Beethoven introduces a new motive, played by oboes and horns, and it sounds like a quaint, gallant-style fanfare. Which continues using this very standard progression. And it's very odd, very touching in a way, how the music changes at this point with this whimsical, old-world 18th century fanfare. Just as the symphony is about to end, it's as if Beethoven is bidding farewell to the courtly elegance of the 18th century with that familiar sound of oboes and horns. But there's one more fascinating thing that happens here that ties it all together. Those ascending scales that grew out of the introduction and became this, which Beethoven frequently inverted as the music progressed, they now return as the mini fanfare repeats. And these scales are everywhere. They're darting about, cascading in the flutes and clarinets, delicate and fleeting. Sometimes they ascend, some descend. Everywhere you turn, the scales increase and multiply. It all happens very quickly, and they sweep us into a full, triumphant C major close. And there is the first of Beethoven's big signature symphonic wrap-ups, those emphatic tonic C major chords, which confirm beyond a doubt that a new dynamic musical force has arrived in Vienna. And how many people in that Academy concert audience on April 2nd, 1800, sensed the significance of the event, that symphonic music was about to change in ways they never could have imagined?
Wow. Symphonic
Goodness me.
music was about to change. They could never have imagined. How often do we go to a concert expecting, don't even know what to expect. And then the history shows that was a historic, pivotal moment.
Yeah, and I don't think he himself knew what was going to happen after he wrote these pieces of music. I don't think
not.
he. No, I mean,
But I would imagine he probably aimed at that exact result, and maybe didn't expect the magnitude of it. But you can't make something important like that happen just by accident. I don't believe in it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something inside him that knew he had a lot to say, a lot to give, and I think it's really what a way to start, right? What a way to really put his foot on the ground and say, "I'm here now, guys."
Pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm the architect of symphonic music. That's true.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The symphonic, the development of the form, development of the architectural approach to that from the composers who were before him, all the way to really developed a romantic approach of it, and so much innovation in there, and so much bringing in different instruments, bringing in different elements which were maybe not used in symphonies for whatever veto or bias there was. And Beethoven experimented with all of it, and then at the same time used a very laconic language sometimes, just very simple building blocks like those scales.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's nothing too complicated about it. With the development section, starting with like sort of the inversion of the theme, then the syncopation of the theme, then he flirts with the minor scale. These are all building blocks, actually, by the way, that he uses in many of his pieces later on in his life. And what I find is really fascinating about somebody like Beethoven, and I think Mozart does it to a certain extent, is that they both wrote quite a lot of theme and variations. And I think when you write enough theme and variations, you kind of know it's a great experiment and an exercise on theme and thematic building, right? And so when you have all these kind of tools, whether you have the Diabelli variations with all these variations, or you have fewer variations. I think the Eroica and the very more famous C minor is correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's 32. But
Yep,
you still have
32.
it is 32. Incredible. It's a special number for him, I guess, right? and these little changes are kind of ways for him to apply material and experiment to later pieces he knows. So we're quite familiar with him inverting the theme and syncopating the theme and flirting with the minor scale, or vice versa. And yeah, right. Like this is what I've noticed in his way of building blocks.
Absolutely. And I think this is like revealing the secrets the composers all throughout the history were using. How do they build their skills? I remember taking the course it was an obligatory course for pianists, and we were all kind of about having to take that course. Who are we, composers? We're not composers. Why do we need to waste our time on writing variations? And it was a major part of the obligatory course for piano majors, and to learn how to write a fugue or learn how to write a counterpoint, canon, and then of course variations. But that's really fascinating. Okay, here you are with a theme. Now figure out 32 ways to manipulate that theme into something different. And this is definitely, I'm glad you pointed out, Chris, that that's how composers really approach this. And that goes back again to the name of the project, Architects of Music, revealing and kind of peeling down the onion and seeing what that music is made of. You know, like a car, it's made of metal and plastic and a lot of innovation, right?
Yeah, I would say that architects, maybe in their blueprints, they may be able to experiment, but they're not as it's not as easy to experiment on a building 32 different ways. You're not going to have 32 different rooms to experiment with. Maybe in the past, when you had to build palaces, then you could have 32 rooms to experiment with, 32 different types of bathrooms, 32 different ways to design a living room. But I think music has this way of being able for us to have crazy ways to be creative. And then this sort of theme and variations, I know it's a little off topic to this symphony, but that is since then been done so much by composers all over, you know, the range of the people we know. And what I find really fascinating, and I always love this, is how he brings the transition between development back to the recapitulation. I always find that to be so cool. And also how he chooses, Beethoven especially, how he chooses to end the piece, what the coda looks like. You know, there's these two ways are ways for the composer to really sneak in a good one. You know, like sneaking something cool, something special, something revolutionary, shall we say. And I think in interpretation, that's one of the things that, if it's a great composer and they've done it perfectly, you just follow exactly what he says. Don't mess with it. Just do it, and it will magically happen.
Yeah, it just carries you through because the composer's intent was just so clearly articulated through the musical language. Then you're so right, Chris. Just sit back, relax, and follow what the composer wrote, and that's the best outcome.
I think so. And I learned this from a teacher of mine who just basically said that Beethoven knew exactly what he was doing. These great composers, they know. Like Mozart, they know what they're doing. And I just think how magical it is that they always vary the way in which the recapitulation comes back. Or, and we might get to this in a different symphony, is in rondos, how the theme always somehow weaves its way back in. And I think it's so brilliant that that's a thing that we have in music. You know, it's always a surprise. You can listen to it 1,000 times, you can play it 1,000 times, and each time you're like, oh, how can I make sure that this is so seamless that, as my teacher said, you don't even know the theme is back until maybe the second measure. You know, it's so magical that, hey, we're back. You know, and I think that is such a cool thing.
Absolutely. And I want to also bring, again, how Beethoven uses the very minimal, sometimes, musical elements or motifs like scales. There's very simple, straightforward ascending and descending scales, he's turning into a really exciting journey when he's running them between the instruments and in different parts and different registers. To me, it's like bringing my childhood memories of running the staircase in the various buildings. I really like to always to explore buildings and to see where the staircase is going to lead to.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to this big chords, it's like, okay, I just glide down the rail of another staircase, just making sure that no one sees me going in there, and then boom, it opens up into some grand hall and just stuns you of where that particular back-end staircase was leading to. And it just becomes such an engaged exploration of keys and events and maybe gardens and everything. It just brings together emotional experiences and memories and experiences with nature and with architecture just through those running scales.
Absolutely. I think that because music lives on the canvas of time, and a great composer like Beethoven is, in a way, a master of time and maybe timing. Like they know where to place certain things in its appropriate place. I forget which talk that I listened to. It might have been one of these ones where a lot of people would discuss who the greatest composer may be, and they would say that with Beethoven, you know that everything is exactly where it needs to be at the right place. You can see it in the way in his manuscripts, he would scratch out certain things and replace it and redo it because it's not quite where it should be yet, or it's not expanded where it should be. And maybe it was Larry who mentioned this, like, all these kind of ways in which he would arrange these building blocks to be right where they should be. And I think often about how that's why these pieces of music live on, because even maybe it's bigger than himself and bigger than us. Certain things just seem right, certain things that sound right, and this twist and turn may be a little bit outside of what we're expecting, but it is exactly where it should be, to the point where when we have this sort of the coda, what a crazy little coda. We don't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah, until it does happen, right?
Yeah.
So it totally keeps you on your toes. Okay, where are we going? Are we done here? Oh, no, yet.
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, can you? I wonder if you can speak to this, because I often think that when we are trying to teach music to young people, and you do that so brilliantly and so prolifically too, I often wonder, when you're teaching them, how often do we talk about this? How often do we talk about this way things are put together, right? So there's building blocks, and it can't be any other way. And so part of it is maybe when you're playing it, you're so involved in the action of it that you don't appreciate the larger structure. But listening to a symphony like this and analyzing it like Larry does, you're like, this is brilliant. How else, how brilliant is this music? How clever are his ways of arranging, so that when I'm playing my pieces, I should also appreciate something of that too, and bring it to full effect. So when he says a forte, it's because it's a surprise, and when he does these scales, it's because it's leading to something. It's leading and leading and leading. And so I shouldn't rush because I know he's leading to something. I shouldn't rush this because it's happening. I might feel excited, but the music doesn't need me to be excited. It's exciting on its own.
That's a very good way to put it. Music is so exciting on its own. We just, we can, as performers, we just need to execute it so that others can get on a well-oiled wagon of a roller coaster and enjoy the ride without worrying about the safety.
Yeah, because I think that's a really good analogy, Dr. Anna, because if you ride a roller coaster and there's somebody in your earpiece saying, hey, it's coming, the foot drop is coming in 5, 4, 3, I think that takes away from it. And some performers like to sort of give away the music they want to either show it too much on their face, or they want to show it through their actions or something. And it's not a criticism of them, because I feel like they're so earnest in their way of trying to interpret this music for an audience who may be hearing it for the first time. But there's also something to be said about not giving it away, so that it's really, you trust the music, you trust that it's just going to have an effect, as long as you are true to what you're doing there. And of course, it doesn't mean you just play everything piano or mezzo forte. It's not like that. It's not like that, but I think a lot about this.
Really
And
in
what
the moment of where that piece of music is currently in the moment. And speaking of the moment, we just covered the coda of the symphony. But we have one more episode on the first symphony by Beethoven coming up, and you bet it's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, I really don't know what he has left in this final part. We've already reached the end of the symphony. Maybe there's a fifth movement that was recently discovered.
Well, Larry Rapchak is a composer too. I don't know if he just figured it out that Beethoven left out some notes for the next movement. We'll let our audience guess.
We'll see.
For a week until we come back with the next episode of this symphony. And with that, we want to thank everyone, our collaborators, New Media Productions, Virtual Concert Halls, Architects of Music, of course, Larry Rapchak for his fabulous narration and his discoveries. And of course, we want to thank many, many companies and organizations, large and small, from all parts of the world who have joined our movement of creating live performances and concerts, presenting orchestras, soloists, and ensembles, and various organizations from around the world, and presenting music films to you. And by the way, if YouTube is not your favorite platform anymore, you can find us on many platforms. We are streaming on 50 plus channels everywhere. And subscribe, give us a holler, give us your like, and then you will be able to hear and see more of these programs.
Yeah, these programs are really an integral part of, I think, musicians in general, whether you're a music lover or a musician, and which is why we created a Music and Musicians Around the Globe show as well, which presents artists and concerts and educational films, music projects that allow for people like yourselves, our audience, to appreciate what musicians are doing all over the world. And if you're interested in being featured, maybe you have a doctoral dissertation or you have some incredible project you're embarking upon, please feel free to contact us. We'd love to feature you. We are always looking for more content to have, and feel free to check our social media as well as our website for further information. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. We have part 9 of the Beethoven First Symphony documentary series.
Thank you, and goodbye now.